you'll get to hear ever. For example, demand planning and supply chain. What is the department or people, group of people who ensure that whenever you go to the neighborhood store, you will get your product from say multiple 7, 8 factories all across India to ensuring that your neighborhood store should always have the stock, irrespective of how many consumers buy the product or whether in one week that neighborhood had birthday parties. Anything can happen. But to make sure that need is being met is the group of people who are doing this procurement to make sure that the right kind of product reaches you starts at the sourcing level. For example, I work for a biscuit company. The two chief ingredients are sugar and wheat. Now, if the sourcing is not correct, you would not get a good biscuit in your hand. And hence, it's also one of the very important functions. Production or stroke manufacturing. Or how many of you are in the operations, studying in any kind of operations here? Is it one of the, yeah. So whole production, supply chain, demand planning is part of the operations group. Then finance. 2, 3, 4. Okay. Finance is also a very strong function in FMCG, and I have only taken. There are many sub-functions in FMCG. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about big chunks here. IT. IT was not a separate function till a few years back, but today it is one of the big functions. It connects the consumer till the end level to procurement, sourcing, production, everything is now connected through IT. And lastly, but definitely not the least, is the human resources, which is the custodian of all the culture that the organization, the history the organization carries over a long period of time. Then I'm going to briefly talk about careers. If you have questions, I'm willing to take the questions at this level, and then I'm going to talk about my personal journey in FMCG. Is that all right? Do you want something else to be covered? Yes? Yeah? I have no idea about that. Personally, I've spent 23 years in the industry. I have not left the industry, so I don't know what you mean when you say attrition. When you say attrition, is it moving from one company to another within FMCG? If that, this, um, in my personal experience, it is more the fact that a person who's done a few years in FMCG is highly coveted everywhere else. It of course takes a lot out of you, but it also gives back a lot in terms of learning, in terms of what you get exposed to. It gives you, and that is the reason why I think FMCG professionals are also highly valued in telecom and startups and a lot of other places. But if you're asking me whether it's unreasonable, I don't agree with it. If you're saying that the targets are unreasonable, unrealistic, I don't think so. The targets are tough. If somebody has given you that feedback, then I would suggest he goes back to the people who were setting targets and negotiate it better. It's also to do with a lot of negotiation skills and how you arrive at those targets.
Expecting my placement to be very soon, so I need to shortlist myself into
Sure, sure.
or something. So that's
No, no, why are you apologizing?
no. I thought
no, not at all. Please interfere whenever you want. I'd love if we have an interaction rather than me standing here and just taking you through few slides I've made because
Secondly, I have one more
yeah,
question.
yeah, please.
So, if you hire a person who is designated as the area manager for sales, is the guy only responsible for selling the product, or is there anything with marketing as well? I mean, is he allowed to form strategy, formulate, and is his view taken?
The way I see it, um, sales guy in FMCG is almost like a mini CEO for the area. For a small geographical location, you act like your CEO, and you can do anything you want. Of course, you would have to operate within a budget. You have to operate within some constraint, which is the reality in any walk of life. But within that, you have pretty much a lot of leverage to do a lot of things. In fact, I believe, and that's my journey says that at the beginning of your career, when you are starting out, and at say an area manager level, you have much more freedom to operate at the ground level than when you are a commercial director of a multinational company. I think you have much less leverage as a commercial director than as an area manager. That's not what my experience is. Anything else? Anybody else? Anybody has a question? Good that we have questions at the topic level only. Yeah. At the start of the career, at the beginning of the career, you would be offered the start of the ladder. That's all that will be offered to you. And in my opinion, that's the way it should be. Uh, there is a reason why most entrepreneurs, once they have become big and they want their kids to join the business, they let them start absolutely at the bottom. You would never see a big lala of a big firm uh, making his children start at the vice president level. Nobody starts that. They always start at the shop floor, either making the product or at the field sales, going and meeting customers, or at the assistant brand manager level, because uh, it's a bit like mathematics. If your base is strong, then subsequently whatever is thrown at you, you are at a much better place to solve it than winning the first few positions fast and then struggling all your life. So my suggestion to anybody on second year would be to look at the company and look at what you're going to do, because if you're going to enjoy what you're going to do, then that's it. What position they offer, how much salary they're offering, I think they're secondary, because if you can do the job well, within a few years you'll be beating the hell out of any of your batchmates. You focus on the company and you focus on the role. What exact role are they offering? These are two things. So the role would define what exactly will you learn in the job. Yeah, sure. Okay. So I'm going to talk about some of the key things in FMCG. The first thing to know in FMCG is what is the full form of FMCG. I'm sure. Excellent. And why is it called FMCG? Don't repeat the word. It's because it is fast, it is moving. Yes, perishable, low shelf life. Anything else? Daily use, yes. Less expensive, low involvement. Good. basic needs, not necessarily, but we can let it fly for now. Same thing as basic needs. Okay, let me go to this frequent purchase, daily needs, very low involvement, low MRP, low price, short shelf life, and daily consumption. This is the first few things you would need to know about our FMCG industry. Currently in India, FMCG is a highly coveted industry. When I say recently, I don't mean the last couple of years. The last couple of years have not been good for FMCG, as it has not been good for any consumer product company because of a little bit of recession and dampening of mood that's happened. I'm sure Modiji's achhe din will come soon, and it will come for FMCG as well. We have one of the youngest nations of the world. How many of you are below 25 years of age? So this is the exact replica of India, I would say, because the median age of India is 25. I am more like Japan, 44. We have large population, a very evolving consumer preference, and youth segment is very strong. One of the few things that happened is emergence of organized retail. However, organized retail has not grown as fast as it was expected to grow, more because of political reasons. But in the longer horizon, organized retail is going to be a very, very strong presence. So people who are interested in FMCG should know that most of the organized retail people today working in organized retail are all ex-FMCG people. Growing urbanization is helping FMCG, increasing disposable income, higher consumption level, and infrastructural development. The fact that almost 70% of villages are now covered by road, motorable road, also helps a lot of FMCG products to reach these places. FMCG in India is massive. It's around 45 billion USD. And set to grow to above 100 by 2020. 33% comes from rural. It's very small considering that 70% of India lives in rural. 30% of FMCG is very low, so that's where the big growth is expected in FMCG. And in India, 2.4% of GDP is contributed by FMCG. So overall, from social contribution, from employment generation to fiscal contribution, FMCG contributes a lot to Indian economy and India as a nation. Coming from FMCG, a little general to a little specific discussion on FMCG. As I said, around 70% is urban, 65%, rural is 35%. In this, there is a slight skew towards north and south. If you see north and south, there's 31% and 25% each. East and west are very low. West has gone up recently. Currently, the smallest market for FMCG happens to be east for most of the companies. However, rural is outgrowing the urban market for the last many years by a lot. So if you look at this green column, those are all rural markets, and they've been growing consistently over the national average as well as over the urban market growth. And this is on the back of rural consumer. As I said, we have better reach now, increased literacy, and also financial empowerment for the rural people. This slide is specifically for me to feel good, because I work for FMCG Foods, and FMCG Foods contributes to over 50% of the overall sales. So, coming back to your question, a good company would be an FMCG food company. I talked about the front end of the business. The front end of the business, a lot of people that use your interaction with the product would be at a marketing level. So people in the marketing are the ones who are interacting with you, not directly, but through the medium of advertisement, press, etc. So marketers develop above the line campaigns, and they also do a lot of brand support activity, which as a consumer or a customer, you get to see in the marketplace. So some of the different types of advertising that is being done currently. You have experience generation, desi fuel, you combine some Indian words or Indian festivals with chocolates, and you make chocolates very cool during Diwali. Common man as a hero, Jago, new patriotism, the brand I love. So a lot of celebrity endorsement here, and a lot of focus on the cultural heritage of India. I'll show you two McVitie's advertisement. This is absolutely essential that everybody focuses here, because this is the brand that I represent. I'm going to talk about two advertisements, similar advertisements, but two different celebrities.
The whole world is changing, we're hella bad. Get hella bad. That's why we are healthy, hella bad. Healthy, hella bad. We will be healthy. By changing the biscuits to McVitie's digestive biscuits. Delicious McVitie's digestive biscuits are high in fiber and yummy to taste.
How many of you know Shreya?
The whole world is changing, how about it? That's why I be a healthy habit. A healthy habit. By changing the basket, McVitie's digestive biscuits. Delicious McVitie's digestive biscuits are high in fiber and yummy to taste.
You know who Shreya is? Yeah, South Indian. She's a very big star in South Indian movies. However, advertisement is not the only thing. TV advertisement is not the only way a marketer reaches you. It's only one of the ways. We also use press, we use radio, we use cinema. Internet is becoming very big now, especially handheld devices. So advertisement on your mobile phone is also becoming big, and also SMSs. So a lot of times, I don't know if you guys would have received, you get a discount coupon, etc. on your mobile phone. So that's also becoming quite big now. So this is all the different medium, and it's quite a big industry. Almost 88 crore industry from FMCG alone in the media. This is again a front end of the business, packaging. A lot of your interaction that you have with the FMCG product is not through TV. So a lot of FMCG products are not on media. You only get to see it in store when you pick it up, when you visually see it, when you smell it, when you feel the texture, is how you interact with. So packaging then becomes a big component of how we reach out to consumers. And one of the essential elements in packaging is BOP. Does anybody know BOP? Balance of? No, BOP in packaging is what? It's not balance of payment. We're not talking about economy here. BOP, and don't Google it. Back of the pack, excellent. So back of the pack of an FMCG product is one of the most essential part of the packaging. As a consumer, you get to know a lot, starting from ingredients to nutritional information, to when it is manufactured, whether it's close to expiry, not close to expiry, everything you get to know from back of pack. So it's one of the most essential elements in FMCG product. In fact, in most of the company, there are specific people assigned to just look at back of pack declaration. They don't do any packaging design piece. They only look at back of pack declaration piece, and it's a highly evolved field where a lot of specific legal statutory knowledge is required. This is again what you get to see in FMCG. Bunting and inflatable flow stack unit, display stand, posters, danglers, etc., etc., etc. This all falls under a department called either trade marketing or below the line activation, or they have multiple names for it. It's basically interaction of a consumer which is not mass media. So non-mass media consumer interaction with the brand would be either done through below the line, POS material, or through packaging. Is it something that you guys can relate to, or am I going a little haywire with this? No? But distribution is still the single biggest of drivers in FMCG sales. Earlier, distribution and sales was the only thing that drove FMCG sales, because the role of advertisement was very small, simply because the mass media did not reach to most of the consumers. So at a TV penetration of say 40% in say 80s, the opportunity that you had to talk to your consumer even at a prime time would be say 20% of the total population. 80% you're not talking to them at all, and hence distribution at that time or sales at that time was very, very critical for the success of your organization. However, the importance of this has come down a little bit in the last 20 odd years or so, but it still remains one of the key drivers of a success of FMCG product. One of the controllable things that you have is availability, sachet offering, which is affordability, awareness, value packs, which are larger packs which you buy for your household, but on a per gram level probably it will come out cheaper for you. And something that is not controllable in distribution is employment rate, industrial production, GDP, crude oil prices, because that defines the tone of the economy in that country, which as an FMCG company you have no control on. As I said, availability is critical to win, so you prioritize market. For example, when we were launching McVitie's in 2009, we were competing with Parle and Britannia. Now, Parle directly, indirectly goes to almost 2 million outlets, 20 lakhs, and Britannia has around 1.2 million distribution. And we are a startup in India in 2009. What do? You can't go to 20 million in day one. No, from a distribution point of view, what do? You can't distribute differently. The answer is written. You prioritize your market. Yes. You look at what all markets are important for you. We decided that we are going to be an urban player because we are a startup, and we are also going to go into the top 100 cities in India with a special emphasis on the metros only. The reason is McVitie's as a brand had a little traction before we launched the product. I don't know how many of you have tried McVitie's imported. Yeah? 2-3 people. You also. So prior to 2009, most of the consumers had an interaction with McVitie's as a brand only through the imported route. We were not present in India. We were not manufacturing in India. So one of the first reason to believe in the success of McVitie's was the fact that those consumers who had actually tried our product initially would try it again. And that's why we focused ourselves on those markets to ensure that we get the first critical success. When you are starting up, and this is my 2.5 startup that I've done. I did a startup in Joypur, then Mother Dairy expansion into other market was a startup. I call that half startup, and then this the startup. When you are starting up, one of the first essential elements that you need to make sure happens with you is that you keep getting small victories. For probably the next 2-3 years, you plan your launch, you plan your product, you plan your services in such a way that you get some small victories on your journey. Because you're not working alone, you're working with a lot of people. When you're working with a lot of people, because everybody is willing to work for a successful company, for a successful person, nobody wants to be with a loser. And if they get to see success, then they're going to stick with you for a longer period of time. And when they stick with you for a longer period of time, you gain from their expertise and you become a winner. So you prioritize market, you identify right stores. We did that. What we said was we benchmark ourselves against NutriChoice, because even though we were the world's first digestive, NutriChoice beat us in India because they launched at least 6-7 years before we did. So we benchmarked ourselves with NutriChoice and we said, whichever outlet NutriChoice is present, we have to be present in the markets that we operate, which is the top 100 cities in India. Know your shopper. So you make a list, you define what you want to talk to them, you train your sales staff accordingly, and you maximize your direct reach. So this is where, and how to win is micro marketing. You can't really have the same marketing budget as the Britannia has. So you make sure that your marketing is designed to the target group. You have to define PG much more clearly than your competition. You deploy your best assortment. So for example, when we came to India, we could have got any product from our stable internationally. But we decided to come with McVitie's Digestive only, simply because that has the best chance of success in India at that time. Maximize visibility, which is branding, below the line, packaging, point of purchase, excellent, and track and course correct. Of these, all the things that I've talked about, I think the last point is the most important and it is the most difficult to do, which is what one gentleman said, that FMCG is a very tough industry. This is the reason why. Track and course correct happens to be the most difficult thing for people who are working. For example, if I design my launch in a certain way of McVitie's in India, and 6 months down the line I realize that I did a shitty job. It takes a lot of personal courage to say, fine, I made a mistake, or we as a group made a mistake, and let's do it differently now. This is one of the other lessons of a startup. That the way you have defined or designed your product or your service is not exactly the way it's going to happen. So you have to track it closely, which requires a lot of hard work, and then you have to course correct. FMCG innovation helps a lot. So, and connected to the last point that I mentioned, which is the track and course correct. So if you constantly keep doing that, you constantly keep evolving, you constantly innovate, then the chances of your success in the market becomes extremely big. And this is one of the upcoming areas in FMCG. A lot of people are innovating in a lot of different ways. For example, let's take Paperboard. I showed you a picture of Paperboard as a packaging example. Now, if you see, yeah, you have a question? Uh, if you see paperboard, I think the only reason they have done well is because of the innovation that they bring in. They have ready to eat, ready to drink products which are completely based on Indian palate. They don't do any Western palate drink, and they have very innovative packaging. And I don't think they do distribution any better than others. I don't think their advertisement is path-breaking or innovative, but I think their packaging and the product that they make are completely different, innovative than what is available in the market, and I think that's the reason they are succeeding in the market. Now let's talk about the back end. Supply, demand plan and supply chain. I think this is one of the most critical department in FMCG, and I think one of the reasons why a lot of FMCG professionals are very valued across different channels, different industry, is because of this. A lot of, including marketers, sales guys, procurement guys, factory guys. I think all of them are involved in the demand planning and supply chain process. So, for example, we'll be doing a launch of a different kind of cookies very soon, and one of the key persons involved in supply chain decisions is actually a marketer, because she's the one who decides which markets are important for her, what is the stock level that she wants when we go into that market, and which all regions should have what all stock covers. So her exposure in supply chain is far higher than any other marketer from any other industry. And this is a multifunctional or a multi-departmental function where everybody's input is taken in and then it is planned. And I can't probably emphasize the role of demand planning and supply chain more in this forum. It's absolutely critical for the success. Procurement. This is an actual data for United Biscuits, having one and a half factories. I say half factory because we have an outsourced third-party manufacturer in Hyderabad, and we have one plant in Kalam. And this is the raw material supplier 42, packing material supplier 12, spread across the length and width of the country. And this is what a procurement person is supposed to do for a company which is not very big, frankly, in India. Yes, it does. It does. And that's one of the reasons why United Biscuit, when it entered into India, did not choose the Oreo way. You know, Oreo is not manufactured by the company. They have a third-party manufacturer, and we had the choice, but we chose not to do it. We did it in our plant. However, when you have a product portfolio, which a basket of products, say 20 products you're selling, you focus on only say 6 or 7 of them, which are your some people call it Navratnas, some people call it hot selling products. Not necessarily all hot selling products are not important for you as a company, but the products that you want to focus on, and then there are products which are there to make sure that the retailer and the consumer thinks of you as a full range biscuit player for us, or a full range personal care products. So those products which are not very critical to your strategy, you can get a third-party manufacturer. Of course, you can't compromise on quality, so you have people taking care of quality there. But yes, to answer your question, it has an impact. I can't say it does not have. So this is the buying environment for a procurement person. For example, as I said, wheat and sugar are two of the critical elements for biscuit manufacturers. And we have to think about governments, farmers, flour mill owners, whole labor issues, to predict what is going to happen for next year. So the procurement guy in August is going to make a budget for next year where he has to take all this into account and make a budget accordingly, or make his plans accordingly, or to cover for any eventualities, or to mitigate the risk that he might see in the future. And hence, it's a very, very intense and very high involvement department. Coming to manufacturing, I think everybody is aware how important manufacturing is to FMCG. We just discussed quality from our own factory to a third-party factory. FMCG production is typically divided into different functions within the factory, where you have senior managers working as departmental heads for engineering, technical, shop floor, stock production, warehouses, dispatches, power generation. So the bigger the company, bigger the organization, more divisions would be created. Shop floor designs and workflows are very, very important to ensure plant efficiency. IR and labor laws are very important. You must have heard a few years back the Maruti HR person was killed in the factory, and it was because of the failure of IR. I would say that the situation came to such a head that this thing happened, and the HR people were not aware in the factory that this is going to happen. It's one of the most critical roles that the HR person in the factory has to do, is to understand and have information of what is going to happen with the labor in the coming times. Product quality and consistency is the watchword. Any FMCG company, whether it is MNC, Indian, wherever, depending on their parameter, depending on the company's parameter, the product quality is not an absolute thing. It is not like honesty. You have to be honest. So it's a perfect thing. Product quality is what you define as a company to be your product quality. And once you have defined it, that this is what my product quality would be, then to ensure consistently you keep producing the same product. And that is what is understood by product quality. Environment sustainability has become a big word. Most of the factories, I believe, are using it. I think 10 years ago or 20 years ago, environment and sustainability was not such a big thing. It's a good thing that we are getting here. And quality certification in the factory has become almost like mandatory now. It's not though needed by the government, but most of your institutional suppliers or exports. So, for example, we export to close to 31 countries across the world, including developed world like Australia, Russia, USA. We supply from here, and to ensure that our product quality matches what they want, plus to assure them that we follow those processes, we have to take a lot of quality certification from different companies. Finance, I think finance is at the heart of FMCG operation. A lot of companies are made and broken by this department alone, and a good finance system which is based on sound recording of data as well as the reporting of it goes a long way in ensuring that the business is profitable in the long run. IT, as I said, this is a department which has come up recently. We have now handheld devices which people carry in the market. We have sourcing companies linked with our company. So, for example, if you want to buy palm oil prices are governed by the global prices, and you need to be linked to their stock levels. So the person buying from our company knows what stock level is present with the people that we are buying from, and accordingly places orders. So if he feels that the stock levels are high and I don't need to place an order right now because the prices are going to be all right, then he does not. And it is all done by today. Nowadays, auctions are also done by procurement. Auctions are also done by IT. Earlier, it was done manually. Now you just log in anonymously,
and you quote your price, and then you get the order. HR is key. Strong focus on talent management in FMCG companies, because FMCG companies are one of the highest employers in the country within the private sector, because two of the biggest functions in FMCG happens to be sales and the factory. For example, we employ close to 800 people, out of which around 300 to 350 are in the field sales, and close to 450 to 500 are in the factory, and the rest of the functions are pretty small. So you can imagine what a bigger company like Nestle would be employing. Managing all these employees, training them, making sure that we are ready for the future, making sure that people are aligned to the culture expected out of them, the behavior that the organization wants, is something that the HR does. HR is also very essential is in recruitment as well as retention. It's a big challenge. As somebody said, attrition is very high in FMCG. I don't agree with it, but attrition is still there, and any company which cannot manage the attrition, I think, is completely doomed in the future. Because if you can't manage your talent pool, if you can't manage your resources well, then you can't succeed. And people are one of the biggest or the most important resource that a company has. And human resource is not there only to fire, as the cartoon suggests, but to train, retrain, make sure that the people stay for long in the company. Careers in FMCG. Whatever I have talked about is from two perspectives. One is from a layman's perspective, looking into a consumer FMCG industry, as well as from a student or an interested person who wants to get into a FMCG company. So the careers that we discussed are the careers that we've already discussed. If you have any specific questions here, I'd be happy to take. Mera?
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Sir, I'm a student of marketing and international business, and I've had a chance to work with FMCG sector, both with organized retail and traditional channel. I would like to ask, do the FMCG companies still focus on traditional channel, or they are more into organized retail?
Let me start. Thank you. Let me start this with a little background on the organized retail. Organized retail came into India in the beginning of this millennium, and we had a very good few years. However, the political forces in India does not support organized retail. The reason is, when I mentioned, I don't know how many of you picked that up, we have more than 8 million retailers in the country, which is a small traditional trade retailers. That is more than the population of Kuwait. We have more retail shops here than there are people in Kuwait, or people in UAE, or people in Singapore. Right? It's almost like a mini nation of retailers. India is also called the land of retailers in some place I read. However, that's a big vote bank. You multiply that by around 5, and that's the population you are talking to. However, organized retail did not do anything substantial for the consumer also. The reason was the legal issue in India. India is one of the few countries where you have MRP. MRP was introduced to save consumers, but if you have MRP and everybody is selling at MRP, I don't see why you would leave your neighborhood shop and drive down to modern trade shop. So MRP then becomes a hindrance for the
evolution of modern trade in India. Now, when your question was, uh, does FMCG focus only on organized trade? I think you need to divide the FMCG companies into two different buckets. I don't know which all companies you have experience in, but companies who are more into a little premium product, not very mass market, tend to be little more tilted towards organized retail. The companies who are very mass market and not premium at all tend to be in the general trade bucket, and then they don't focus on organized trade. So I would say I won't generalize the FMCG into organized trade and traditional trade. I would divide it into between premium, non-premium, mass, non-mass. Does that answer your question? Yeah. If you are getting a position in FMCG sales, I would say you should start with traditional trade, and you should start with the toughest territory that you can possibly get, because the beginning of the career is the best time to build a career. Anybody else? I didn't get your question. Can you put your mic?
Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah.
Sir, I want to have some insight on the media and advertising industry of the FMCG sector. I mean, I know that the FMCG companies, they outsource their business to advertisement agencies, but there must be some people in the company who should ensure.
Yes. So typically an FMCG company would have a marketing team. It would be led by a marketing manager, stroke director, stroke head, um, under whom there would be category managers. I'm talking about a regular FMCG company, category managers. So, for example, within our company, if you are in biscuit and you have a multiple category that you operate in and you have multiple brands, so you have category manager. So, for example, for us it will be say sweet biscuit category or savory biscuit category, and within that you would have brand managers handling specific brands, and under them you would have assistant brand managers helping the brand managers manage those brands. This would be a typical. Does that answer your question? Or are you looking for something else?
No, surely.
Yeah. So these are the people who then interact with media buying houses. So media, for example, if I today have to advertise on ZTV or I have to advertise on Colors, I don't go and talk to Colors. So Colors and me don't have any face time. We go to media buying companies, and then they help us buy, because they operate like a tour operator. So for example, when you go and buy a ticket, sometimes tour operators give you at a lower cost airline fare than what the airline does, and hence you gain a lot. So then, as a brand manager, I would talk to creative agencies, I would talk to yes, and media agencies.
Two ads you showed us, so they were geographically differently placed. I mean,
Yes,
one was the
yes.
south.
So that's the reason I had. Sometimes you make the ad different for different geography. So South India is very, from a marketer perspective, is a very good market, because you can completely give media local to that market. For example, if you want to reach to a consumer in Delhi, you don't have any media vehicle which targets only Delhi. But if you want to reach to a consumer in Chennai, then you have a channel which only caters to Tamil Nadu. So as a marketer, you have a lot more leverage to save cost as well as to reach to your TG in a much better way. And hence, Shreya Ghoshal was used. No, she's not Shreya Ghoshal, Taran. Taran, yeah. Around 25% overall. Within biscuit, you have categories and subcategories.
But overall biscuits, say around 26% is what comes from South. South is disproportionately high in healthy biscuits, oat biscuit, digestive. It's very counterintuitive. When you look at South Indian movies, and no offense to any South Indian who might be there, they're very healthy. Yeah, they're not very slim or they don't look like weight conscious people. But when we actually go to sell, we realize that one of the biggest oats market happens to be South. One of the biggest digestive market is Tamil Nadu. And one of the biggest markets for nutraceuticals in India is again South and not North or West. So, yeah, South is very important for food as well. But the biggest market for food in the, if we can take a geographical area and say this is the biggest market is Delhi NCR, incidentally. Delhi NCR is the biggest food market, followed very closely by the greater Mumbai area, including the Mumbai town. Yes? No? Yes.
Good evening. You were talking about environmental sustainability.
Yes.
So over the years, what are the process changes that you've seen in your firm that makes your product not only healthy for the people who are buying them, but also healthy for the environment?
So, for example, we used to earlier use sunflower oil in our biscuits, which is a vegetable oil. But we realized that palm oil is much more healthier than sunflower oil. And the incidental benefit for the company was that it was also a lower price than sunflower oil. So we shifted to. The other thing we do is we are a zero water um, user for the plant. So most of the plant, the water is used by the underground water reservoir, and we try to give back as much water as we take from the underground. So we are a net zero user of the water of that area. We also have within our company a process called lean, which is something which some of you doing operations would have read. We follow lean process, which means we have one of the lowest wastages of packaging material, which is all petroleum based. Lowest wastage of packaging material in the company. Of course, all these environment sustainable issue has to make sense for the company economically. You can't really be, like you're not a social service organization here. You're not from missionaries of charity that you would say today I'm going to make my product more expensive just by making environment sustainable product. We do that, but we make sure how to also derive benefit out of it. So I was talking about lean and using less wastage in packaging material. Yes, it helps the environment, but it also reduces our wastage, and it's helpful in that way.
Good evening, sir. My name is Mohammed Satara. I'm first year student. I have a question as far as the career is concerned. To start a career, which would be a better suggestion? A big company with a small role or a small company with a bigger role?
Big role, any day. You have to see the company should survive. It should not be that you get a very big role. But when I say big role, I don't mean salary-wise, mind you. I don't mean that because it's not necessary that bigger role means bigger salary initially, but something that gives you exposure into a lot of different things in a smaller organization is a much better bet than bigger organization, smaller role. However, make sure that in your career you work for a very large organization once, because the process centricity that a large organization does inculcate in you, I don't think a small company can do. So you need a right balance going forward in your career. between result orientation and process simplicity. You can't be all process driven guy कि मैंने सारे process follow किए, there was no result. And you can't be all result saying I've just bribed my way through the process and I've said the hell with the process, I'm going to just deliver results. You can't, any extreme would be bad for your career in the long term. So you need to have a proper balance. Hence, once in a lifetime you need to work, and beginning probably, need to work for a larger company, very large company where the process simplicity is there. Anybody else? You can ask any question. No question will be considered stupid, because the first few years of getting into the industry is when you are allowed to ask stupid questions. Once you are 40 plus, you would only be allowed to sound intelligent, nothing else. Anything that comes to your mind, please feel free to ask. Nothing? Should I move? People are very keen to get into the weekend, right? I remember my promise, let's move on. So I'm going to talk about my experience in FMCG. What has FMCG given me? I started my career with FMCG with Hindustan Unilever, and 23 years down the line, I'm still with FMCG. I have spent 4 years, 3.5 years with Unilever. Then I spent 9 years with Joyco / Wrigley's. Then I spent a year with Balsara / Dabur. Then I've spent 5 years. So somebody was saying the attrition is very high. I don't think so. Most of the companies that I worked for were very tough working environment, but I think averaging more than 5 years in every company is quite decent. So whatever today I am in my personal life as well as professional is because of my experiences in FMCG companies. When I started my career, I was probably like any one of you. I was very happy the day I got salary, and the next 3-4 days I used to waste it, completely blow it up, and then I asked my dad for more money. However, when you handle a lot of budget, so the first 4 months into my career, I used to handle around 18 crores of revenue for the company, and my trade budget for every period was close to, we used to call it JC, journey cycle, which was like 4 weeks period, was around 1.2 crores in 1993. When you handle that kind of big budgets, you become responsible. You're forced to become responsible. You have no way out. Otherwise, you don't survive. You just collapse. So it made me responsible, made me a better person. Ability to take pressure. Somebody said pressure. It's about negotiation. It's about how well you can take that pressure. How